2011 in terms of partisan control. So you can see that it basically flipped exactly from 68-52 with Democratic control to 67 plus one unaffiliated who is going to caucus with the Republicans to 52 Democrats. So the Republicans now have a reasonable majority, not a veto-proof majority, but a majority in the North Carolina State House. This certainly means that there will be new leadership taking office. Speaker Joe Hackney, who's been an incredible ally of ours, the Democratic leader, will not be Speaker in the next session. And we don't know yet who will be. The two most likely contenders are Representative Paul Stam from Wake County, who you may know from various past things, including comparing us to pedophiles on the floor of the House. And then the other candidate is Representative Tom Tillis, who's somewhat more moderate and someone that we may have some opportunities to work with. On the Senate side, we also saw a significant flip from 30-20 with Democratic control to 31-19 with Republican control. And I want to emphasize that not all Democrats are good on our issues, and not all Republicans are necessarily bad on our issues. But the most significant thing about this split for us is that we're going to have different leadership in place. And we've had leadership that has been willing to stop bad legislation and has been willing to advance pro-equality bills like the Healthy Youth Act and the School Violence Prevention Act. And we can't count on that with this new leadership in place. So we're going to have our work cut out for us. There was some great news in the election, though, too. And that is that we have a new voice at the table in the state legislature. When I learned last year that Senator Julia Bozeman, our first and only openly gay state legislator, was planning not to run again, I was really concerned that we weren't going to have somebody in the legislature from our community openly representing us in those conversations. And I'm so excited that Representative-elect Marcus Brandon from right here in Guilford County down in High Point is going to be joining the state house. He's actually going to be the first openly gay man in the state legislature, the first openly gay member of the state house, and one of just 5 openly gay African-American legislators in the country. So Marcus has really made history. At some point in the day, I don't think he's with us yet, but do make a point of getting to meet him if you can. Before I move on to what all of this means for our issues, I just want to say a little bit more about the election and some takeaways from it. And first of all, it's still the economy, stupid, as Bill Clinton's campaign famously said many years ago. It's very clear that the change in power we saw was based on national economic issues more than anything else, and certainly more than social issues. In terms of what voters said was important to them, LGBT rights was so far down the list. So the voters were not giving these folks a mandate to pass anti-equality policies. They were focused on other issues, and that's something that we're going to be reminding them of many times in the coming weeks and months. One of the other things that was really great was, although many Democrats didn't fare well this year, we did see that Equality North Carolina's endorsed candidates did very well. Every single one of the candidates we endorsed who had previously been elected in their seat was returned to office, and a number of the folks in open seats were also successful. Overall, 42 out of 52 folks that Equality North Carolina endorsed in legislative races were elected and will be serving in the state legislature. One of the other things that we noticed was when we passed the School Violence Prevention Act and when we passed the Healthy Youth Act, we had a lot of people saying this is too dangerous, it's political suicide to vote for these, those kinds of things. And what we saw is in the races where legislators who did the right thing and voted for pro-equality policies, where they were directly attacked on those issues, it didn't work, and they were returned to office. I'm thinking of people like Senator Bill Purcell, Representative Darren Jackson, and Representative Greer Martin, who faced some really nasty attacks for their support of our issues and came through and are returned to office and will be working for all North Carolinians again. And then one of the other things that we saw is that the Democrats, in particular the conservative or moderate Democrats who didn't support pro-equality positions, folks who maybe co-sponsored the constitutional amendment in the past or who voted against the School Violence Prevention Act, were not inoculated from the Republican wave. So we saw people, Democrats who took anti-equality positions like Senator Don Davis, Representative Nelson Cole, who co-sponsored the constitutional amendment, and Senator A.B. Swindell, who voted against the School Violence Prevention Act. They lost their races. So it's very clear that taking anti-equality positions is not protecting these Democrats from challenges from the right. So what does all this mean for our work going forward? We have some real new challenges. The environment we're working in is so different from what we've been working in the last few years, and I know there's a lot of questions on people's minds. First off, and I think probably foremost in most of our minds, is the issue of the marriage discrimination constitutional amendment. And we've got up there, this is actually a couple of years old, but I think it's apropos, the cover of the North Carolina Family Policy Council's newsletter with the bright red target right there on North Carolina for trying to pass a constitutional amendment. We are going to have to fight like hell to try to stop this amendment. In the legislature, they may have the votes they need to pass it, but we believe there are opportunities to peel off some of those votes. Both on the Republican side and Democrats who've previously been supporters. The exact timeline for the amendment is uncertain. We are hearing everything from stories that the Republican leadership plans to move this through in the first week and a half of session, to they're not going to vote on it at all in 2011 and hold it until 2012 or even later. So we don't know the timeline that we're working in. And that makes it so important that we start working right now to get the support that we need from both sides of the aisle to try and hold this back. One of the things that I think is a significant message that folks will need to consider is that this amendment is going to cost the state $5 million to put on the ballot in 2011. So in a year when the state government is trying to find $3.6 billion, the last thing they need to be doing is spending $5 million of state taxpayer money on passing a constitutional amendment to discriminate against the LGBT community. We know that there is at least one Republican in the House who is opposed, newly elected Representative Glenn Bradley from Franklin County, and we're working to find more. So again, don't look at those red bars on the graph and assume that it absolutely means we can't get the votes. But it does mean we're going to have to work incredibly hard to make that happen. We have to keep reminding the leadership that they do not have a mandate from the voters to tackle these issues, that they're supposed to be there working for jobs, working to improve the lives of North Carolinians, not putting discrimination in our Constitution. We also need to prepare ourselves as a community, and this is not a cheerful thing, but we need to prepare ourselves for the very real possibility that this bill could get through the legislature. We will do everything we can to stop it, and I'm going to be asking everyone in this room to work with us and do everything you can to stop it in the legislature. But it could go through, and we could have a bill on the ballot either this coming November in 2011 or 2012 that we need to fight. That's a scary thing. It's something we haven't faced as a community before, but it's also, if it happens, a real opportunity for us to reach out and connect with our fellow North Carolinians, to tell our stories, and to educate and get people to understand why anti-LGBT discrimination is wrong and why they should vote down this amendment if we get to that point. We know that our opposition in the Family Policy Council and the Christian Action League have been dwindling. They've been losing power and influence over the last couple of years, but we expect that they're going to be back with force, and we have to be there and ready to